What in the world is happening on May 7th? Today we're going to talk about this new innovative tool that the government wants you to use. And May 7th, it's supposed to come in act. Now, we're talking about a new president that's coming in, and I'm hoping that he will stop this. But there's something we need to talk about when it comes to May 7th, 2025, and what is being implemented. Now, no one talks about this because, to be honest with you, so far in the future, people are like, oh man, we're just worried about getting someone confirmed to nominations of the cabinet of Trump. But what we don't want to do is take our eyes off other things that have been passed. I told you a long time ago, it's amazing how we elect these people to Congress and we elect these people to Senate, and then we have a bureaucracy and a swamp up there that ultimately all they do is not serve us. They put us in servitude to them. More regulation. And the thing is, this ID situation that's happening on May 7th, you'd be surprised how many Republicans went along with it because it was in the name of your safety and security and to control who comes in and out of the border. That's just what they want you to believe. Let's talk about that today. Also, we're going to discuss UN wants a lot more billions from us because they need it. They need it. And then we're going to talk about what the FBI has been investigating. And it sure isn't something that we want them to. Let's dive into these stories today. Hey guys, welcome to the Max. Thank you so very much for being here today. You can tell it is a dark, gloomy day. We've actually had a lot of rain, and it is a winter day here in South Mississippi. Thank you so much for being here. If you are new to our channel, we humbly ask that you will subscribe to the channel so that way you can always get notifications of things going on each day. And hopefully we can gain a perspective that is wise and has a common sense approach to the crazy stories that seems like go around in our world each and every day. Now let's talk about these stories. May 7th, 2025. I want to read this, and Mike Lee had a good article on this, and I'm not saying I'm the biggest Mike Lee fan, but I do believe that Mike Lee has people's best interest at heart. And also Thomas Massey brought it out as well. Let's read over some of these things. It says, beginning May 7th, 2025, the federal government will require U.S. citizens to provide a real ID to fly within the United States. It's almost like a passport for the interior. Let's keep on going. However, TSA has continued to allow migrants to fly without identification. Now think about that for a second. We tell people that they cannot have voter ID because it's too hard to get. All the while, people get driver's license, hunting license, fishing license, so forth. We know that. To buy alcohol, license. Now our government that tells us that we can't have an ID for voters is telling us we need an identification number, a social identification number that's called Real ID, that helps us know where you're going at all times when you cross these state lines. Now the purpose of this was sold to Republicans as well. It helps us make sure that people here are supposed to be here. They're legal. That was kind of the push. And of course, Democrats were saying they just want surveillance on you, know where you're going. But doesn't this just sound like a system to completely say, okay, now not only do you have Social Security and everybody knows about you, now you're going to have a real identification number so that way we know where you're going at all times. We know where you're going, what transport you're using. Anytime that you go somewhere with a government, bus, car, transportation on a train or plane, we're going to know where you're at. Does that make you feel more safe? Now this is something that's been pushed all in the name of safety, to keep you safe while you're in the air or on the buses. However, we're still allowing people to not have IDs to do other things. Seems like the people that are law-abiding citizens will go along with this like they do with permitting with 2A rights, with permitting with hunting and fishing. It's like the people that abide by the law are the ones you don't have to worry about, and they're the ones that end up having to get all this stuff. But the fact that if people are criminals, are bad, are not supposed to be here, are trying to do something nefarious, do you honestly believe that this real identification number is going to stop that? That this new passport for the interiors is going to stop that? No, they're going to be nefarious and a criminal and still not get a real ID. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Thomas Massey also put, and I want to read this from him. It says, Real ID was sold to conservatives as a way to prevent people who are here illegally from traveling and using taxpayer money. It's a fairly obvious now that this is a ploy to take away from your civil liberties. It was sold to be, well, it helps people not be able to use public transit that is not a citizen. Well, wouldn't you think that we would already have that solved if we closed the borders and we use driver's license and socials and things like that? We already have so many other identification numbers. Now they're trying to get something that's more like a digital identification number. It says the next scam is a national e-verify. Will you fall for it? And that was a big question asked by Thomas Massey. All we're doing is we're becoming more and more immune to government knowing everything about us. I think of crypto, I think of digital currency, I think of MasterCard's Visa, I think of us using plastics to pay for everything, I think of how much we buy and all our phones, they ping us, they tell us our locations. Everything about us is being watched. And now government wants a part of that. So the government is now going to put in this new real identification number. Now it can be stopped. You're just going to have conservative leadership, you're just going to have a conservative president, and one that leans more libertarian. Freedom, populism. But will it be? Have you heard a lot about this Real ID? It's something that you need to read into, because what it does, it just leads to a social credit score. It leads to another identification number. It leads to a maybe new style passport. So not only are they worried about where you're going outside the U.S., what about inside the U.S.? What if you're not supposed to go to that place and you're using public transit to get there? It's something to think about. So now yesterday we talked about, or 2 days ago we talked about BlackRock's investment in food and how they're wanting to add more things to it. It's already happening in Australia, okay? Now we're talking about Real ID. It's already happening in China and Australia. Do you see that momentum we're taking? We're following this new tyrannical views that our freedom is slowly being taken away from us, all in the name of safety and security. That is the spin. Now remember, this is going along with the fact that there is a new outbreak in the Congo. I mentioned this a little bit yesterday. 147 confirmed dead. Not sure what the illness is, not sure the flu-like symptoms, not sure what's causing it. They just know it's an unidentified situation. But for safety and security, we need to control where you go. For safety and security, you need to put this on. For safety and security, to do this. Do you see how they can spin that so quickly to impact you and influence you? Now, that's one aspect of this video. Now, the other part that we need to really talk about is the fact that now, along with the governing body that should not have power, the UN, they're wanting more money. They're wanting more of your taxpayers. So not only are we giving way too much to NATO ties dealing with these conflicts, now the UN has come out with a startling amount of money that they just think we got to have. UN appeals for a $47 billion global crisis fund. Something that helps as global crisis worsens. The U.S. is seeking more funds for 2025 to assist 190 million people facing war, starvation in the regions of Sudan, Gaza, Ukraine, and other places. If you notice, they never say Israel. Just remember that. UN aid chief Tom Fletcher highlighted unprecedented suffering as this year's funding fell, forcing cuts to critical aid in Syria and Yemen. With uncertainty over U.S. contributions under Trump, aid groups warn that the growing challenges need to be met and that the U.S. should help. Now let's think. You know the revolving door. You open the door and it swings the other way. The reason it was revolving, the reason it was pendulum swinging, was because you swung it so far the other way. Isn't it amazing, a lot of these government bureaucratic groups and a lot of these political classes and a lot of these establishment groups cause the problem to then complain about it, to then want to be the solution. So you hear the UN actually saying we need more money in these areas that they caused a lot of the problems with, or other bodies caused, such as Ukraine. Remember, they could have solved the Ukraine situation in a peace negotiation 2 years ago. 2 years ago now. But Boris Johnson and the U.S. stopped it. So now we need more funding. We need help over there because people are suffering. Well, duh. Wouldn't you think that if we would have stopped it and negotiated it 2 years ago, we probably wouldn't have needed that extra funding that the UN is saying that we needed? The Gaza situation. When Trump was president, there was not utter peace in the Middle East, I understand. But the Abraham Accords made a huge difference. And you didn't see a lot of this chaos that's going on. Look at Jordan. Look at Georgia. Look at Iran. Look at all these places. Look at, of course, the Gaza Strip, all that. You're seeing more and more chaos in the Middle East. Wouldn't it have been nice to have the peace accords that we once had? No, we can't have that, and that's something that the UN was against. So now the UN is saying, well, we need more money because of all the conflict that's caused in the Middle East. That door, they're the ones pushing the door, and then hopefully it won't hit them in the back as it keeps on spinning around. It's literally unbelievable. And when we're so foolish that we keep electing these Republican and Democrat lawmakers to set precedent and set law to give more money to these people. Now, I have to give Mike Johnson a little credit, even though I'm not a big Mike Johnson fan. He stood against the Ukraine extra funding bill yesterday. Now, the question is, will it be negotiated? Probably. He probably won't get $24 billion like Biden wants. He'll probably get 12 or 10, and they'll negotiate some kind of stupid port project with it for the Republicans, and they'll call it a quote-unquote win. But as of right now, Mike Johnson said, look, we're not going to do any new funding until we have the new president-elect in office. Well, that's a smart thing to think. That's a smart way to look at it. Way to go, Mike. That's what you should have been doing the whole time. Let's get a backbone now. Come on. But see, this is what happens, is we cause all these problems, and then we want to fund extra money towards it. And just think, can you picture what $47 billion is? That's a lot of zeros. And because we've spent so much money and because we're in so much debt, I think we don't realize how much money these things are. You, in your home, can you imagine just someone giving you $10 or $15 or $20,000 or $100,000? A lot of times that would almost change your life, or at least change a few years for you, or get you back on stable footing. What if someone gave you $1 million, $10 million? That's unfathomable. That is life-changing, changing generations. We have lost all thoughts of zeros, and now we're in the 100 billions, the 200 billions, the 500 billion, 1 trillion, 2 trillion, $37 trillion in debt. We have no concept anymore of what people need. And then what happens is we send all this money blindly to a group that truly does not like us, the UN, who really wants a open border global initiative pushed. And they're wanting $46 billion of our taxpayer money. 46, 47. Why do we even house the UN? Why are we even part of the UN? Why do we even worry what they say? Really, truthfully, all these non-governmental agencies, all this fluff, all this junk that we pay is taking away from us as taxpayers for what? To ultimately cause us to be in more problems. It's kind of like the Real ID thing I just said. We elect people to give us deregulation and freedoms, and they put more laws and more direct causes of less freedom on us, and then we elect them back to Congress. Or we allow them to just stay up there. Or we allow them to put more bodies in public sectors. And we have millions of people hired by the government, and now we have a lot of those still working from home that still has not been brought back to offices, and we're still paying for the office buildings to be heated and cooled and cleaned while there's no one there, and we're paying for them to be home. Help me. Please help me. I'm not too smart, but to me that seems like a bad policy. And UN is dogging us out, dogging out a lot of our allies, especially in the Middle East, and now they're wanting our money. It's unbelievable to me. It's almost foolish if we even listen to what they have to say. That's why I really hope Trump would just say, look, we're pulling out of UN. We're pulling out of NATO. Not that he's going to do either of those things, but what he's saying is, look, we're going to have a different policy going forward. If you choose to have our taxpayer money, it's going to be for better interest that involves freedoms and Americans. And yes, do we want to help people across the world? Yes, I would love to give food and medicine to everyone that needs it. But instead, we're provocating the wars that's causing the problem. Now, last story, it should scare you. Again, here we go with another situation where government oversteps theirself and oversteps its freedom of people. Now, I told you a lot of times with these people that are getting nominated for Trump's cabinet, they really have to be stalwarts, and they have to be willing to face the problems they're gonna have on them. Listen to this bombshell report from Benny Johnson. Benny Johnson has a whistleblower on to speak to him named Steve Friend, revealed that open operations, FBI has tried to sabotage Kash Patel. Listen to this. There is actually a full counterintelligence investigation open on Patel at this time. So whistleblower comes out and says definitively, the person that's supposed to lead them, that's wanting to fix the FBI, they're trying to do everything they can to destroy him. How? You wonder why we don't get good people in leadership, good politicians, good people who want to see America first values, because no one wants to deal with the headache of this right here. It's so unfair what Pete Hegseth and his wife and 7 kids are going through. It's so unfair what Kash Patel is supposed to have to go through. It's so unfair to hear all these stories on all these people. Now, no one's perfect. I'm not saying that they have to be a perfect person. I'm not saying they haven't done anything wrong. I'm just saying Democrats can get away with anything. Republican rhinos can get away from anything, and everything can be covered up. But when someone who wants to change the way Washington runs gets in there, they want to do a full court press of destroying them. They tried it with Trump. They've tried it with Roger Stone, with Giuliani, with Navarro. I love the fact that Navarro got appointed by Trump. They did it with Bannon. They're going to do it with Gates. They're going to do it with Hegseth. They're going to do it with Gabbard, RFK, and now Patel. You wonder why no one wants to be a part of government in changing it? Because none of them want to drag their families through it. So for these people like Kash Patel to stand with it and say, you know what, I'm going to keep on going for it. If Trump wants me there, I want to be there. Just like Hegseth said yesterday. I hope Trump stands beside him and says, we're going to get them in. I love the fact, I made a video yesterday about how the 6 senators were against Hegseth. Something changed. And I hope Trump puts so much pressure on them to say, look, I will primary you and I'll work to get you out. Because every one of them come back and say, well, I guess we will vote for Hegseth. It's sad that they can get in line over just a little conversation that shows how quickly they can get out of line with an extra amount of money or an extra lobbying fee or an extra pressure by someone on the opposite side. This whistleblower literally told Benny Johnson that they are opening investigations and spending countless dollars on trying to destroy who is supposed to lead them. If Trump gets Patel in there, Patel should take every one of these people working on this, even the rank and file people who are just at the low totem pole that just says, look, I'm following orders. Well, if you follow orders to be dishonest, you should be fired too. And I wish he would dismantle these people here. Not only the talking heads in the top of FBI, but everyone who tried to investigate him for no apparent reason. So you think the more surveillance like Real ID, you think that's actually going to be more beneficial to the law-abiding citizens? No, it's to control you. And the people who don't want to be controlled and the people who are criminals that are here legally, they're not going to get a Real ID. It's amazing. We still have states that won't allow voter ID to come in because it's too hard for certain people groups to get it, but then they want you to have a Real ID to control and know exactly where you're going at all times. Government bureaucracy needs to be fixed terribly. All right, guys, give me your thoughts on the stories of the day. This is a lot. This is a heavy video. But the truth is, if we want real leadership, you're going to have people that are willing to do the thing to fight again. I love what Hegseth said yesterday. He said, I'm in it for the long haul. And the president turned around and backed me. That's what I want to hear. I hope the same thing for Patel, Gabbard, RFK, and all the rest. I want to see a complete change in Washington. And it starts by getting good people in leadership. It's hard because, again, you see they're after them. It's time for new leadership. And I'm excited about it. We still have a long time before January 20th. But remember, when January 20th comes, we need people like the Republicans, the true conservatives, the freedom-minded people to say, you know what, Real ID, we're canning it. We're throwing it away as garbage. We're not going to have it in May 2025. We don't need any other identification of our citizens. What we need to do is control our borders and get the people who don't have any identification, who is not a citizen, to get up out of the USA. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this video. Please subscribe again to the channel. We need your support. God bless.